Grown ass man.
Hey, doctor.
Good times. Grown ass man.
You better have a check for you, okay?
Over there, man. They sitting there last night.
Next stop, York Avenue and Church Avenue. Transfers available to B35 and B35 Limited. Avenue and Church Avenue.
Hide your face, man. Don't hide your face. Excuse me. Hey, have a good day. You need to say something, man. They got these grown-ass men sitting there. There's an elderly woman with cane, and they're sitting there ask there. All right? Say something. Anyhow. Welcome back. Look, what the hell you doing, man? Look. You know what? I gotta laugh. I talk about how they try to do these choices. So they crowd up one side and they crowd up that side, you know. And as I walk past, he's like, you know, buckling his pants. Like, fuck out of here, man. You know what I'm saying? You know what that's about, right? Yeah, the gay theme and then the color red. Right, the gay theme that they try to use, like, you know, when I turned that corner, the gay black guy. I said the great nigga Peter grabbing his crotch. Oh yeah. But they are emboldened today. Let me tell you. Like I keep telling them, they can't silence me. I'm gonna miss that bus. All right. They can't silence me. That's all right. I get the other one. But yeah, let me tell you, they try to use these. Look at her hands. Look at her hands. Look, see? I tell you, nasty motherfuckers. Walking the street. You're a grown man, but you walk in the street grabbing your crotch when you see another grown man. What kind of shit is that? See, a lot of these Negro males, they're closeted homosexuals. You know, anytime a man walk towards any man and grab their crotch like that, that's because he's a closeted homosexual. That's all that is. And it's okay. Just be loud and proud of who you are, man. Don't try to mask it. You know what I'm saying? And don't bring that in my way, because that's not who I am. Look, you start to see the same shade of that color, right? The vehicle passed by there. This one, what is it? Like a cranberry red, or maroon red, or what they call a burgundy. That's not even the burgundy, is it? Oh, sorry. Oh, look, 153257. And I'm on the machine. Hey, they all try to sneak in that number 32, right? It's some form of something. Anybody else coming out? All right, guy, man, you coming in the bus?
Sir, thank you.
You know, as a woman, would you want a man to let you get on the bus first? Right. You know what happens in the days of courtesy, right? I have women arguing with me because I'm letting them get on the bus first. They will literally stand there and argue with me. You know? Right? And so what does that say? Yeah? It tells you how our women are trained to no longer expect those things from the men, because only in our culture, only in our people. Huh? I tell you, anything when I talk about how they don't want you to set an example or lead by example as a black man. And this, over the past 2 decades, they have been eroding our mindset to where, black men can no longer lead by example, right? Our people don't lead by example anymore.
I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's actually
Yeah. It's the reason why we have no leaders. I mean, no true leaders anyway, because they are purposely being eliminated. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I usually talk to the bus operators, and I tell them, if you go and look up what is called cognitive warfare, and cognitive warfare, it is how you defeat a person or a group of people in a way that they don't understand.
How are you, driver?
Right? So when they talk about cognitive warfare, they tell you that you don't see what's happening because it registers in your subconscious mind. Right? So it's called cognitive warfare. Right? So like NATO, the Hague institution. They talk about cognitive warfare and how European nations need to teach their citizens how to recognize cognitive warfare. But in America, they don't do that because they use cognitive warfare in the population, right? This is why you have such large wealth inequality. This is why you see they roll back on, our civil rights, and we're just chugging along like nothing was happening, right? Right. But how did that happen? It is through cognitive warfare. Go look when you look it up, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's sad, right? Yeah. Right, and it's also because we don't have the ability to think and to think critically. We are highly believers, right? And what we don't understand is that psychology and the science with psychology and how it is used, right? So I talk about epigenetics. You can condition generations of offspring to have certain traits, and so for us, one of the traits that work against us is that we are, we're highly believers, right? We are people who don't want to know, right? We are people that lack knowledge. We are people who say that we are religious, but I keep saying, your Bible tell you, man, people are destroyed for lack of what? Knowledge, right? And why? Because we have become too superstitious and too religious. So religion has overtaken our knowledge, our thirst for knowledge, because it's how the Bible are being taught to us in a very negative way, right? When you look at the Jews, right? The European Jews, they're religious, but guess what? They're some of the world leaders in technological advancement, right? In engineering, okay, in medicine, right? In every aspect, right? Right. But for us as a people, we are the total opposite, right? And it is intended that way. It is not because, like I said, when I talk about cognitive warfare, you'll see. It is a warfare that is waged on our psychology, right? And that's one aspect. And then you talk about the biological warfare, environmental warfare using lead, right? Every single year, how many thousands of black children are poisoned with lead? And what lead does to their emotion, to their mind, right? The degradation of their cognitive ability. And then you have technology like your cell phone. And, and our
Other stuff that's teaching our children to be that.
Yeah.
Not that, but that's what they think that's the way to be
Right.
recognized or accepted is to
Right.
know that. But I just raised my son, and my son is nothing like that.
Yeah.
He had no ultimate graduate in college and has a decent job.
Right.
I was that parent.
Right.
I also wouldn't allow him to choose to work.
Right.
And I explained to him that the problems are being turned back right to us.
Right. But right. Well, you're what I call a unicorn, right? So you're one of the few black mothers that literally today, even in the past 22 decades, have to understand the importance of creating a certain mindset within your child or your children, right?
Everyone tells me that.
But most of us who grew up with our mothers who are very religious, right, put religion over everything else, right? And particularly when you're raising boys, particularly black children in America, it is very important that black mothers understand the importance of not just the church, but knowledge, particularly for the boys, right? Particularly for the boys, right? Because it is the men that's going to build the society, has always built the society, that are doing the work to pave the road, those type of things. So you need to raise children that have skills, not just belief, and that's the biggest problem. And then what the white supremacists have done is use the mothers, particularly with their daughters, to get them to take out all these loans in college. So now our young women are the biggest in terms of the amount of debt for school, right? And they take out tons of thousands of dollars for education to get a degree that's not going to pay them enough to pay back that loan, right? And then another thing is that they trick them with the house and the car payment, right? So just as car payment, black women are the number 2 in terms of debt when it comes to car payment. And they're not just buying any regular car now. They're buying the Mercedes, the BMWs, all these things. You know, they're taking out loans to buy, you know, these expensive handbags and stuff like that. And you know, black women are the #1 buyers of luxury goods, right? But and this is what they do. In order, if for them to have a shift of mind, they don't want to have a shift of mind. They will say, well, you know, they'll come up with black girl luxury, right? But how you black girl luxury? You're making an average salary. You know what I'm saying? It's like they make excuses for the bad things, right? Because right. But it is a conditioning. You understand? Because no other group of women, by far, in terms of mass, do what they do. You know what I'm saying? It's a condition. Right, it's conditioning. All you gotta do is just look at other groups, look at how the men behave, look at how the women behave, right? And then you compare that to look at how our men behave and our women behave. And you understand, if we're living in the same nation, right? Why is there such a stark difference in terms of this? Right. And it's done on purpose. Yeah, it's done on purpose. You take away. Right, exactly. Exactly. Right. But we don't, here's the thing is that we have been conditioned not to see the leaders amongst our people. Right? Because if somebody's trying to correct you from doing something, you know, we get upset, right? We get, you know, you can't, or they gotta have money. They only listen to people with money now, right? It's like, if you don't have money, you can't talk to me. You know, that sort of thing, right? You know, and like I said, not understanding, and I was asking him, I said, you know, well, you believe in Jesus, right? Jesus had no money. His disciples has no money. Jesus literally railed against, you know, the preachers and the Pharisees and the churches collecting all this money. And today, the black church collect over $15 billion a year. Now, what are they doing with that money? They're not investing back in the community, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because here. Right. You see. Right. 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 But you know what? It is intended that way. And also, when black people start businesses, they don't have the capital to start the kind of business to get investors and invest in their business, right? So, example, where's the example of a black Walmart, or black Target, or black, you know, such and such, right? There is none, because we are being sabotaged on a level, it's just economically, right, that we don't understand. So when black people try to get into business, remember, we are priced out of everything. When we go to buy products, they charge us more at the highest price, so we have to sell the goods higher. You know what I'm saying? So we can't compete. It's the system that is designed to keep us at the bottom. And here's the thing: the church could have rectified this, but you know what? The pastors are programmed to always take from us, like the system does, right? So the pastors the same way. This is what I always say. I said, you look at other churches, right? They buy up real estate, they invest in real estate and land. The black churches don't do that. These pastors, they buy their mansion, they drive their cars, they go to church, they tell the congregation, right, they'll tell you to humble yourself, but they're not humble. Because, you know, if you make a comment, they'll snap at you and call you this and that and say, look, I'm wearing $5,000 shoes, that costs more than your whole, you know, this is what they say. Right. So if we're the biggest believers in the Bible, and the Bible have shown us these things, why is it that we're not looking at those things in the Bible and calling it out? Right? Cognitive warfare. To be able to block out those things in the minds of a people or a person or a group, right? It's something that's, you know, cognitive warfare is all about. Sure. Yeah, because it's our inability to think. That's what I'm saying. It's like we want to believe, right? So because we don't think, is the reason why we don't understand certain things, right? We don't understand, right? We don't think, we don't care, because again, it's a condition, and that's within us. So until you recognize what is being done, right, there's no way you can change it. You can't change it. You have to be able to recognize it, and to understand it, not just believe, right? So for example, I was talking to another driver about, cell phones, and how that I see so many black parents giving their young children cell phones, not understanding how dangerous it is. Not only that, but their cognitive ability and the emotional state, right? Yeah. Because they don't understand the technology within cell phones, and it is so dangerous, particularly with the iPad, because it has a radio wave frequency transmitter and receiver. That's the part that we don't get. Well, we didn't have we didn't have that much technology, right? I mean, what year were you born? 1990? I was born in the 70s, right? We could go outside and play. We didn't have all this technology, right? Right? So today, instead of parents, making sure their kids do their homework, read and stuff like that, they give them the cell phone, they give them the tablet, and so but if they right. See, that's what I do with my kids. Like my daughter, I make sure they read, right? And I make sure they actually hold a physical book, not just on their tablet, right? Because it's important. But here's the thing, right? With these technologies, because of the radio wave microwave frequency, those things can be weaponized. They can be weaponized to what is called vibrational acoustic weapons, which means that your whole body starts to shake, your bones, because it rattles your skeleton frame, so it can harm you in that way, right? Let me get out. All right, got it? Got it?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. And then there's what is called brain entrainment, meaning that they can literally place you on hypnosis and programming, right? Now, they were doing these things from the 1970s or the 60s. There was a CIA doctor named Dr. Jose Delgado, right? He developed a microchip, right, that can control behavior. There's a New York Times article that's written in the 1970s called "What Kind of Human Beings Would You Want to Create?" New York Times article, 1970s. So when I talk about how these racists have been manipulating our people for decades, we don't understand. Even Jim Jones, the cult leader, right? The reason why the CIA did what they did, and it's the CIA that poisoned those people in Guyana, right? There's a book on it that explains to tell you why. But there was a senator that they claimed that a member of his church assassinated, which is a lie. This senator told him that the government was creating a microchip to microchip black people. Right? You never heard of that, right? There's a book by this author he's a psychiatrist, his name is Dale Dimsdale. He wrote a book called Dark Psychology, right? Expose how dark psychological programming is being used on the American public, right? But in that book, he states that Jim Jones was trying to warn his congregation, the black people in his congregation, that the CIA was developing microchips to implant them in the future in black people. The black people, exactly. All right. Anyway, thank you. Have a good day. Good conversation. All right. You too.
And then my daughter.
Oh yeah. So you guys see the New York Predator Department, how they show up? So one of the things that they're trying to do is, because when I expose certain things, right, they will run this narrative to where they're trying to silence me, right? Because again, they don't want people to know what I know. They don't want people to understand what I understand. It is a way of dumbing us down and keeping us in a ignorant state, right? I'll have an ignorant state of mind. So whenever I can share knowledge to anyone, like I said, I teach my people. I educate them on what's going on. Then they can go and they can do the research themselves, right? They will understand that absolutely what I'm saying is true, right? Okay, see, only dumbass religious Negropeans want to believe and don't want to know things. And the reason why I say that, because you just come out of the church, right there, right? So again, let you know it's the church. See, these people are so indoctrinated with religious lies, right, that they will, engage in stalking you to silence you, right? But I keep telling them, my purpose is far greater than theirs, right? Because their God don't exist. Their God is an imaginary figmentation that has been taught to them. And again, all you got to do is go do the research, right? They actually have statues of their God, Yahweh, El, right? They literally have statue on that. You can go and read Francesca, I forget her last name, but in her book called God Has a Body. An early Canaanite and Hebrew belief system, right? They literally have statues of their God, of Yahweh. He has a head, has a body, has a, you know what I'm saying? It has an autonomy, right? So again, but when you have ignorant people who don't quite understand these things, they become very fanatical, a radical in religious belief. And like I said, I don't blame them for what they believe, because they've been indoctrinated since they was a child, like I was. But come on now, there's so much information out there today, that you got to understand what is going on, right? Yeah, fuck you too. Still trying to stick his middle finger out, but this is a very sneaky way. All right? So why do we keep believing in nonsense, in fairy tale? Right? Why do we keep believing in fairy tales and nonsense? Because it's a moneymaker. Like I was telling the bus driver that these pastors, the church, black churches could have solved many black people problems. But these pastors are all about taking money from their congregation and using it for themselves. They could have bought real estate, they could have built a housing, or they could have bought some of these abandoned buildings, fix them up like any other group of people do. All right? You look at these other churches. Look at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Right? You look at the Catholic Church. All right? You look at Church of Scientology. But in the black church, these pastors, they're all about themselves and greed. Like I said, in the Bible, Jesus did what? He overturned the money table because they were exchanging money in the temple. Right? So like I said, they don't believe in the teaching of Jesus. They believe in the teaching of Paul. Because this form of Christianity is Roman religion. It is Paul religion, who was sent into Judea, or Udea, I'm going to use the right terminology, the right pronunciation, Udea, to infiltrate the Judean army and the Judean people. All right? You got to understand that. You should know that. Paul was an agent. He was an agent of the Roman state who was sent to excuse me. I want to say de-radicalize, because the Hebrews at the time was such a staunch believer in their religion and in the laws of their religion, right? And the Romans needed a way to create new prophet, right? And so Christianity became profitable and controlling to the minds of the believers of this version of Christianity. So you need to understand that, right? It's more about money and controlling your mind than it is about saving your soul. All right, talk to you guys in the next video.